Mark, when there was a time when you were sort of in their shoes, but now, obviously, Facebook's success has been extraordinary. But I'm sure that you still can connect with the stories that are told here and some of the stories out there. How's Facebook thinking about its own role in creating this platform for entrepreneurship around the world? I know that's something that you've been thinking a lot about.
Well, it's really inspiring to be here with so many great entrepreneurs, and to hear about all the work that you're doing, and it's an honor. So thanks for having me. To me, entrepreneurship is about creating change, not just creating companies. And the most effective entrepreneurs who I've met care deeply about some mission and some change that they're trying to create, and often they don't even start because they're trying to create a company. Right, and that's how I think about my connection to all of us here is when I was getting started, I cared deeply about giving everyone a voice, right, and giving people the tools to share everything that they cared about, and bringing a community together. And it started small in one university, and I didn't think it was going to be a company at the time. As a matter of fact, I was pretty convinced that at some point someone would build something like this for the world, but I thought that would be some other company that already had thousands of engineers and was used to building stuff for hundreds of millions of people around the world. And what ended up happening was that no one built it. Right? So we just kind of kept on going. Right? I mean, people said at each step along the way, what you're doing. All right, maybe college students like it, but no one else is going to like it. And there's not going to be any money in doing this, so all right, so you only really do it if you care, right? If you're passionate about doing it. And then it started growing, and people said it would be a fad, and it would never be a good business. But you keep going because you care, not because you're trying to create a business. And then there's the shift to mobile, where people thought that it wouldn't be a sustainable business, and through each of these things, the entrepreneurs who I think build things that last for a long time keep going because they care fundamentally about the change that they're trying to create in the world, and they're not in it just to build a company. And I carry that with me today. So today we have we live in a world with more than 7 billion people, but more than 4 billion of us are not on the internet. And we talk about having an equal opportunity to be able to create a change in the world, and I think that's a really hard thing to do if you don't have access to some of the basic infrastructure and technical tools that are necessary to build this kind of these kind of technical products. So, I kind of think about what we're doing today very similarly to how I thought about where we were at the beginning. I get people all the time who come to me and say, all right, well, you're investing billions of dollars in trying to put internet connectivity in places where we don't get paid for it. It's not something that we'll make any money from for a very long period of time if it works out. But it's this deep belief that you're trying to make a change, you're trying to connect people in the world, and I really do believe that if you do something good and if you help people out, then eventually some portion of that good will come back to you. And you may not know up front what it's going to be, but that's just been the guiding principle for me in the work that we've done. And I hope that some of the work that we do can play a role in empowering you and so many more entrepreneurs to build the next great companies.
Excellent. So for the three budding entrepreneurs, you've already had some success and positive feedback, but I know that it's still hard sometimes and frustrating. And let's go back to the earlier question that I asked. What do you find to be some of the biggest hurdles for your success? And are there policies that either your governments could be pursuing or that the United States, in conjunction with your governments, could be pursuing that would really make this process, if not easy, then at least a little bit smoother? And are there questions or concerns that you have in terms of how more established businesses like Facebook how they might be able to interact with startups like yours. So why don't we'll go in reverse order this time. Why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I think there's been many challenges along the way. On our case, we try to disrupt many preconceptions, I think. So at the beginning, many people were like, how are you going to train people in months, and get them a job? How are you going to get young women who went to a public high school that's not very good to actually become competitive in the labor market? And I think luckily we've overcome those, and we've proved that they are incredibly talented, that you can learn in months instead of years. Right. And most of the companies that hire our developers actually rehire, so they've realized that they're great, and they're as competitive as anyone else who comes from a different background. So I think that's been very, very encouraging on our way. And I mean, the little secret that I have, I think, being a social entrepreneur is that motivation is everything, and when there's bad times and where we are not making the end of the month to pay all our people, and when we're facing all these challenges, I usually just go into the classroom. I'm like, okay, let me go into the classroom, and I talk to the girls that study with us, and it's just, they are the main force behind not only myself but all my team, my partners and all my team, because they are fighting so hard to making it happen. They are traveling, sometimes commuting 4 hours a day to come and go back. They have, on top of their studies, a lot of domestic responsibilities, and they're proving that it can be done. So that's always a reality check to say, I have everything I need to keep going at this.
Mm-hmm. Good. John Mosca.
Great. I think one of the most biggest challenges that I have faced was because I started this company very, very young. At that time I was 19 years old, and in my culture it is believed that those great initiatives are started by old people, and those things which have been difficult for older people cannot be possible for young people. So I tried to disrupt that status quo, and I created this company. But of course, during that period, no one was even trusting me so that he can be my employee. So I had to be my own marketer, I had to be the technical boss, I had to be everything in the company so that I can build that kind of first impression, so that I can impress few people to come to me and help me run this course. And the other challenge that we were facing is that a lot of financial institutions didn't even know what we were talking about, because these are the kind of renewable energy that we wanted to bring to Rwanda. And you would find a lot of folks working in banks asking you, what are you trying to do? Because they don't even understand what you are doing. It was like very difficult for them to analyze and calculate the risk that might be involved in the activities that we are trying to do. But because I trusted my solution and this kind of thing that I want to do to my community, I kept pushing, applying for different competitions, and luckily I won the United States Africa Development Foundation grant to start this initiative. And when I started, people started to see how you can take advantage on waste that you already have to produce some products which can then go back in communities and be solutions which can improve lives of many people. And then from there, people started coming. But the lesson that I learned from that very basic experience is that no matter what you're trying to do, necessary is that you are having that kind of motive in your mind that you want to help your society move forward. So the policies and the other partners, stakeholders will come along the way to help you run that initiative. But that will happen once you start. If you don't start, no one will come and join you.
Good. So we've heard. No, it's interesting. I mean, part of what the two of you have described is, first of all, each country has its own culture, and there are going to be sometimes some cultural barriers. whether it's attitudes about women and what they can do, whether it's attitudes about young people and how seriously they take a young person. Mark had to deal with that a little bit, but here, obviously, in the United States, and particularly in Silicon Valley, I think that's begun to change. But there's also just basic issues like financing and having access to capital, particularly when it's a new idea and it doesn't fit the existing models that the banks or other financial institutions may have. Do those kinds of challenges resonate in your experience? And how did you navigate through those?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think all the entrepreneurs, like everywhere in the world, we share the same challenges. I think I did almost every single mistake that you read about in every startup-related book. I learned everything the hard way. So yeah, it's a learning process. It's funding was one of the challenges, of course. The other one was the legal system and the legal structure, especially in Egypt. It's not startup friendly. So you have to do a lot of workarounds and you have to be persistent to get over that. Building a team as well, and like I'm a woman, I started, I was young and...
You're still young, I think.
Yeah.
I think you qualify as young.
So yeah, I had almost the same challenges. It's, I would say that the only thing that keep us going is believing in our idea, believing that we can do something, we can add value to people's life. And this is the only thing that keeps me walk every day in the morning and go to work. Yeah. So.
Well, look, all of you just are expressing what Mark said, which is it starts with a passion. If you start off just saying, I want to make money, but there's no clear mission behind it, then when you start hitting some of these barriers, sometimes it's very hard to push through them. With respect to some of the barriers that you're talking about, the U.S., in connection to the Entrepreneurship Summit, what we've been trying to do is take best practices and learn lessons about what's working and what's not. And so, in the grants that we're providing or the training that we're providing, what these summits have been really useful in doing is hearing directly from entrepreneurs and say, this program doesn't work as well as it could. This one works really well. What we're also trying to do, though, is encourage governments to listen and hear from entrepreneurs to build a different kind of culture. So the point you made, Maya, about how hard is it to get a business started, right? How much paperwork do you have to fill out? What kinds of fees do you have to pay? How much bureaucracy do you have to sort through? That's something that here in the United States we've had to deal with ourselves, and what we've tried to do is to both simplify processes but also use technology in ways that means you don't have to travel across town in Cairo to go to an office and the person you need to see isn't there, and then you have to travel back and reschedule the next day, and the traffic's terrible and it's driving you crazy. If you can go on the net and do a lot of that work ahead of time, that can make a huge difference in accelerating the process that you're doing. And so I'm very glad that we have 20 countries represented here, because part of what we're doing is getting commitments from those other countries to say, we're going to learn from each other and figure out how we can streamline these efforts so that we're making life a little bit easier for young people like you.
Yeah, actually, when we started, we didn't know where to start from. Like, we couldn't find any information online, for example, on how to get the company registered in Egypt. We didn't know any startup lawyers or anyone who can register the company for us. So we had to go ourselves and ask for help from other people, and we couldn't find any information. It took us so much time, efforts, and money.
Yeah. Well, even here in the United States, where it's much easier to do business, we still have 16 agencies that are in charge of doing business. We've tried to streamline them into one. It requires congressional action